And I was kind of thinking about this the other day of like, what is love? Like, I feel like in today's culture, we have totally misunderstood the concept of love. What is love? Like, I might ask you, like, what is love? You might think of romantic love. You might think of a love with a friend or an animal, a pet. So clearly there's more than one type of love, right? I think most people identify love with an emotion, which I think is an error. I think it's a common error. I think it's one that like most people have because of the culture that we are all growing in. It's kind of teaching us that that's the way to how to look at it. But if we really dissect like what is love and how did Christ love us, we can find out more insight into really what love is. So where am I going with this? I think love is more of an action than an emotion. So in the context of Christ, how did Christ love us? He suffered persecutions. He sacrificed. He died on the cross. He didn't say, I love you. I mean, at times maybe, but he demonstrated his love through action. And those actions were all sacrifices. They weren't fun. He went through pain. He went through suffering. He put up with a bunch of persecution. That's how we know he loves us. Now, emotion spills from that. So when you get a warm feeling in your heart of love and you're like, oh, that's very nice. And you know, your eyes start to well up and you cry when you think about the actions of Christ. That's great, but that's not the love. That's a symptom of the love. The love is an action of sacrifice, and that emotion you're feeling is a symptom of that love. It's not love itself, but it comes from it. So like you might, if you're a parent, I'm not, but in theory, like how do you love your children? You give them your time, you give them their energy, you teach them, you're giving them your resources, you're protecting them, you're doing all of these actions of sacrifice. If you're a single man, you get to do everything, you get to spend your time doing however you want. But once you have a kid, you're no longer doing what you want, you're doing what the kid needs. And so you are sacrificing and you're changing your life for this child. That's the love. The action, the sacrifice, that's the love. The emotion is something that comes from the love, and it's kind of like the cherry on top. It's not necessarily the love itself. And I think emotions deceive us because it speaks in the Bible and other parts of the Bible. You can Google it, but the heart, nobody can master the heart, and the heart is very deceitful. So let's say we're talking about a romantic relationship. I think people mix up infatuation with love because there's a lot of parasitical relationships out there in the world. And friends, you know, if somebody likes to have a good time with you, that's not necessarily love. That's what that's saying is this person has a good time when they're with that other person. They're getting something from you. When they're with you, they smile, they laugh, they have a good time. You're making them happy. I'm trying to identify the chain here. So like you're giving them something, they're getting something from you. But remember when we were talking about Christ and we were talking about the relationship with a father and a mother and a daughter or son, it's not about what the person gets from the other person. It's about what they give. It's about what they sacrifice. The love is the sacrifice. It's selfless, not selfish. So like in a parasitical friendship relationship, which is extremely common, they're not thinking like, oh, what am I sacrificing? They're thinking, what am I getting from this relationship? That's selfishness. So it's the opposite of the way Christ loves you and the way you love a child in an ideal setting. And so you can apply that to romantic relationships and friendships and whatever kind of relationships you get out there. Is if it's focused on what you're getting, it's a selfish relationship. If it's focused on caring for the other, it's a selfless relationship. Selflessness is love. Selfishness is not really love. It's kind of taking advantage of a situation, but it might be masked with smiles and laughing. And that's why it's deceitful, because you're having a good time. You know, you're feeling good. And that's how your emotions are one way. They're very deceitful because that's not really what's going on. And I think that's something that people get taught these days growing up. It's like, if somebody's making you happy, like smile and giddy, that's like love. it's not really love. It's infatuation and somebody appeasing your like desires. It's a selfish thing. And in John chapter 15, I believe, it talks about how there's no greater way to love somebody than to lay down your life for them. So think about that. The greatest way to love somebody is to sacrifice it all, because that's what it is to lay down your life for somebody. You're basically going all in. You're saying, I'm putting it all on you, man. Like, I'm willing to die for you. It's done. So you have no more to give than everything. So that's why dying for somebody is the greatest way to love somebody, because it is the greatest sacrifice, which is what Christ did for us. He sacrificed it all for us. He performed the greatest way to love somebody, to die for them, to give it all to them. So that's how we objectively define like what is love throughout the Bible. It's constantly associated with sacrifice. It's never associated with emotion. In fact, to die for somebody sucks. It's painful. It's not a good time. You're not happy. I mean, maybe you're like happy you're sacrificing, you're loving somebody, but like it's painful. It's not like, oh my gosh, I'm so giddy. I'm laughing and having a good time. That's not love, but our emotions deceive us. And the culture we are currently being bred into teaches that. It's the world's teachings, and it's completely backwards to what love actually is. And I think that just spills into every single relationship that we have. Friends, family, spouses. I think it just produces so much confusion on the matter. Love is sacrifice. Love is giving. Love is selfless. It doesn't really have much to do with emotion. Those things are hard to do and are not usually emotionally comforting. So those are my thoughts on the subject. I'd love to hear what you think down in the comments. But yeah, that's what I get from all this kind of stuff.
Wake up.